Welcome to Giants Nation. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Ryan Novozinsky of NJ.com. And it's our first official episode in the bus. We've got Art Stapleton coming on later. We've been at the first day, 2 days of training camp. Jaxson Dart has been out his first time as a Giant in front of fans. Russell Wilson as well. Abdul Carter, we're going to get into all of it. And Nic Jones. Ryan, how are you?
I'm excellent. We see Nic Jones play some football today, so I'm just about as good as I can be.
You really are. Like it's been a fun couple days. Day one was a little slow, right? We did the stream for the first time in hour and a half practice. They kind of kept it light, but day two I thought was pretty action packed. And again, you're not gonna have these crazy takeaways from the first couple days of camp. Sometimes you get things reaffirmed, and we're gonna get into all of that. Um, Before we get into that, this episode was brought to you by Body Armor. This Body Armor is brought to you by Giants Nation, and Giants Nation is brought to you by Body Armor. Rewrite your routine and choose better with Body Armor. Body Armor is real hydration with electrolytes, coconut water, and no artificial dyes, flavors, or sweeteners. We don't like those things. With great tasting flavors like strawberry banana and orange mango, that man don't treat you like right. You got to let that man go. Body Armor will level up your hydration game. Grab Body Armor Sports Drink today at your local grocery store. Body Armor, choose better. You'll be glad you did. Um, I want to start with talking off about Russ, right? He's the new starting quarterback. It's a first time thing for the. It's actually only the third time in 20 years that the Giants have had a starting quarterback, a new starting quarterback. Where Eli Manning had his reign for so long, Daniel Jones for almost 6 years, as the Week 1 starter, and then now Russell Wilson. I felt like it was good, right? He went 18 to 30, 5 touchdowns. The only interception was on a which I believe they were using as a 2-point conversion in like a 1-minute drill. But it's kind of been the usual Russell Wilson to me, which is again a nice upgrade for the Giants team.
It's a positive sign, right? Because I don't think anybody was expecting him to come in here and light the world on fire. He just wasn't going to do that. He can't do that at age 36. Maybe if they got him at age 24 or whatever he was when he won the Super Bowl, he could have done that, but definitely not now. But I've almost been surprised to see because he has a weapon in Malik Neighbors, obviously. But other than that, like I think you look across the board, you look at the Steelers roster last year, and you see, a lot better players on that offense. He's kind of, stepped in and filled a nice role. And like you said, he's been a clear upgrade over Daniel Jones. Not that difficult, I know, but this is still a guy that's able to come in right away and make an impact. To where it's a clear difference. It almost seems, um, I don't want to say night and day, but he looks a lot better. You're watching a lot better quarterback play with Russell Wilson under center than you were the last 6 years.
At least you see confidence in him, right? Throwing
Right.
the ball down the field, which the Giants. Now, to be fair, the Giants did throw the ball downfield a ton in training camp last year,
Mm.
but they just had no results to go with it. And we're talking about day one was short red zone, right? The low red zone, and then day two was like 40 and in, 30 and in. So it's not even like there's opportunity for these deep shots. And Russ, he's hit Malik Neighbors on some of these passes. Malik Neighbors is obviously going to get a lot of targets. But it's been your normal Russ where it is. Not just stuck on your first read, but it's like, hey, I'm looking for my first read, my secondary read. If that's not there, I'm going to look to get to the check down. And I think that's kind of what it's been for Russ, where he's completed 8 catches to passes the receivers, and then 10 to the running backs and tight ends. And outside of a Bellinger touchdown, most of the tight end passes have been very close to the line of scrimmage.
We joked about it off air, but I think it's true. Who is Russell Wilson's number one target going to be if not named Malik Neighbors? And it's the running backs, right? I said Tyrone Tracy. You said the running backs. I mean,
I went and looked it up. Tyrone Tracy is tied for the most catches from Russell Wilson
there we
with
go.
Malik Neighbors.
There you go. No, that's exactly the point. So, look, he's being aware. He understands that if the play's not there, and obviously, like we said, it's tight. It's in the red zone, and things are going to be a little tighter. But when it's not there, he definitely goes to those checkdowns, and I think that can have some success this year.
Yeah, so it's just Russ feels at least competent at the bare minimum. I did the quarterback rankings thing. I don't think anything here has been like, oh man, Russ needs to be jumped up into a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. But over 2 days, it's like there's no alarm bells. There's been some good things, and anything that's been bad is it is the kind of the typical Russ. interesting where there's not a lot of, like, good quick game being, completed. Like, for example, Wandale has 3 catches. One of those was a deep catch and a beautiful ball and an even better catch by Wandale Robinson against Andru Phillips. Um, and then so, Wandale, who last year in camp or last year on the team too, it was like, and this guy gets like 9 targets a day, and they're all within 5 yards. Like, that's not how Wandale's not gonna get that volume, but he should get some more, quality touches when he does get it. Um, there's no really passes over the middle of the field. The one that stands out is the Daniel Bellinger touchdown that he had against Cordale Flott in the red zone.
I wrote down in my notes here, and I can't take credit for this joke because this was the great Steve Serby from the New York Post. When that Wandale catch happened today, that kind of circus catch over Drew Phillips, um, he said out loud, Steve Serby said out loud, "I think that's a career long for Wandale there," and he actually might be right. I think it's noteworthy that they are, that they have been attacking Wandale long, with a deep shot here and there. That's something that I've seen the first 2 days of training camp. Obviously, today you saw it, I think twice. Um, I'm interested to see just how Russell Wilson, spreads the wealth a little bit on this offense.
Yeah. Um, let's do Jaxson Dart talk. This is, my first time getting to see Jaxson Dart, one in person, but, two since, him playing in college ball. Or actually my second time seeing him in person. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. He's just looked really bad early on. His first throw in team drills was a pick six on day one, and day two technically was better, but it looked very similar with a really nice touchdown to Jalen Hyatt. I keep the numbers. He's 4 of 13, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in the first 2 days. So he looks really bad early on. He had another the interception to Nic Jones where he just jumped it, pick six. Trey Hawkins on a play where, he's trying to bait the corner to cover low. He doesn't and just throws that ball to that middle player, and it gets intercepted by Trey Hawkins. And I kind of want to use this as like a wake up call for myself and Giants fans and whatever. Is we have been talking about Jaxson Dart, and I said this on the live stream about, hey, he needs to sit and learn, right? He needs to sit and learn. We don't need to rush to play him. I want to see him play at the end of the year if the Giants aren't competing. But again, that's the end of the year just to give him more experience, not to provide a spark to the team or save anybody's job. And the reasons why is because this is who Jaxson Dart is right now,
Mhm.
right? It's about getting him better a year from now when he is where he will be the number one quarterback when we start training camp. And we are going to be judging harshly where if he plays like this, we're going to not be happy or we're going to be, critiquing it more often. So right now he is a bad quarterback. Um, there's things I do want to see him improve on throughout camp, and we'll get through it. But this is a reminder that this is like he doesn't need to sit because he's great and it's just will rookie quarterbacks sit. He needs to sit because he needs to learn and grow.
You said it best there. Right now, he's a bad quarterback. Just like Jordan Love probably was when they drafted him all those years ago. And not to compare those two situations because they're very different. But project quarterbacks, when they start out, they are bad quarterbacks most of the time. Joe Shane knew that when he traded up for him. Joe Shane knew that he was probably going to take some tinkering with. And Brian Daboll, but he sees those traits in Jaxson Dart. We just really haven't seen them yet. The onus is on him to untap that potential there so that he can eventually, like you said, next training camp, be a good quarterback. He's holding onto the ball too long. That's been the biggest problem. I mean, even in these 7-on-7s, you can see where the sack would happen almost, right?
Yeah.
Like you can almost feel it. You would like to see him make a little bit more quick decisions, but even when he makes a quick decision, it can bite him.
But I'm not like fully okay. Like, oh, I want to see bad decisions. But this is where we talk about what is growth. Where I don't want where I'm looking for growth is that area right there. I want to see him get the ball out quicker because it's right now it's not, oh, it's a tick late or half a tick late. Right now it's coming out like just like 2, 3 ticks late, and sometimes it's not coming out at all where he's not even getting a chance to throw the football in a
Mhm.
practice where he's not getting hit, getting that clear of sacks.
We can record a live stream while he's back there deciding.
Yeah, so, like but that's what I wanna see him get better at, is just get the ball out of your hands and actually just throw it, even if there's mistakes. Again, I am not looking to be at the end of this training camp and say, "Oh, man," well, I would like to see this, but, like, I'm not my realistic goal for him isn't, "Oh, man, he's just lighting it up. He might be competing for the quarterback one." It's just he's confident with the decisions he's making even when there are mistakes and he's learning about them, right? And that's what confidence is. I know we talk about confidence and aura and swagger. Like, confidence to me for a quarterback is not saying I wanna have a better career than Eli Manning. For confidence to me is being able to throw the ball, with confidence and making those quick decisions, kinda like we talked about with Russell Wilson, before. That's what I wanna see him get better at in his growth. I'm not looking, "Oh, we need to see more deep passes for him and stuff." Those things will come. I wanna see him get the ball out quicker. That's where I think you could see realistic growth from now till, the end of the preseason.
And it's taking calculated risks too. I think yesterday the Theo Johnson touchdown, good for him. He got a touchdown, and we mentioned this on the live stream. But it was kind of a dangerous pass to throw there in the red zone, and again on a gimmicky play as well. You want to see Jaxson Dart go from okay, in the first 2 days he's making these risks or sorry, he's making mistakes, and you want to see more risk, but you want to see calculated risks, right? Right now, he's doing too much calculations in the backfield when he's trying to go through his reads there and go through his progressions, but it's definitely burning him.
Yeah, and again, it's day 2 of training camp. We're not like, I keep the stats, but we're not looking at the stats really. It's just I wanna see quicker decisions, and more confidence in what you're doing, because that's what he's gonna need when he plays. It's not that he's gonna, "Oh, we need him to throw the ball deep 20% of the time." We're gonna need a guy who knows how to, make those throws with confidence, read spacing, understand that, and those are always the areas that Jaxson Dart need to grow. 1, because I think he struggled with that at Ole Miss, but 2, they didn't really put it on the menu very often with Lane Kiffin, where it was very much down the field, one read, and almost tuck it at that
Mhm.
point. So that's where I wanna see him go. But there was some, good, um
I noticed today when the pocket collapsed a little bit and the middle opened up, he rushed through there, and that's what you want to see from him too. Like I think that this is a guy I'm really curious to see. I want to see more on his feet too. Like I want to see the rushing ability of Jaxson Dart. I want to see kind of that dual threat ability. That he was praised for in college, but it also kind of bit him because at the same time he takes too many risks by using his body a little bit.
Yeah, and again, I think we'll see that come as, we get in the preseason games and stuff where I think
Right.
they're right now they're trying to teach him from the pocket, or hoping they're trying to teach him from the pocket. Um, but again, it wasn't all bad with Dart mostly, but it wasn't all. There was a really nice touchdown he had to Jalen Hyatt where if they had a free rusher come off I don't know if it was because they had too many men, more men than blockers, and it was like a cover zero blitz, or if there was a miscommunication because he's playing with the second team O line, so that's bound to happen. And especially when you think that you have a third string tackle out there with Andrew Thomas not on the field yet. Um, so he has that free rusher, and I'm like, "Oh, gotta get the ball out, gotta get the ball out." He gets the ball out, finds Jalen Hyatt for a nice back shoulder, and I hope that's something he can learn off. Like, hey, make that, be confident, right? You saw that you had to make that throw because the rusher was coming on you. Do that with the quick game. Do that with the intermediate game, and there's gonna be mistakes. Again, I didn't come into this training camp being like Jaxson Dart needs to succeed and have good numbers and no interceptions and all touchdowns. No, but again, what does growth look like? For me, it's getting that ball out quicker.
I want to see Jaxson Dart make you wear a size small shirt.
I almost was worried that they were going to do that because I tweeted out that if he doesn't have any incompletions, I would wear a size small for the Art Stapleton interview. And he went 1 for 1, and then they pulled him. I'm like, oh shit! If they have an hour and a half practice, I might actually get in trouble here. But I'm not going to make that bet again. Um, Outside of the quarterbacks, a couple quick notes before we get into the Art Stapleton interview. Um, Abdul Carter, I want to save it for when full pads come on because I want to do like a start the episode with Abdul Carter segment. But just today, I watched him a lot, and it's just like this guy just wins. He wins against centers, he wins against guards, tackles, tight ends. He dipped. There's Jordan Renan posted the clip of him dipping the
Oh
corner
yeah.
on Marcus Bowe. It's like, oh my gosh, dude! Like,
Carl Banks quote tweeted that and said it looks like it's on fast forward.
and nobody else on this team can do that. Like Brian Burns has is great get off, great bend. He cannot do that. He also, bull rushed Marcus Bowe and put him on the ground.
Mhm.
Lined up in the A
A
gap.
gap, yeah, A gap blitz
He
against.
juiced the gap, opens up JMS's hips, and spins off of it,
Mhm.
puts JMS on the ground. In the run plays, you just see him in the backfield at the handoff. Um, Again, I'm not gonna say a ton because, like I said, I want next Tuesday's episode of being like Abdul Carter won every single one-on-one. I charted it every single one. But he is just so fun to watch, and I really think the Giants got the best player in the draft in Carter.
I completely agree. Look, I think what a lot of people don't realize, just because you don't really think about the pre-draft from the 2021 draft, but people kind of were like, oh, like Kayvon was never this kind of prospect, right? He was never seen as like a once in a lifetime, like generational edge rusher prospect. This is Abdul Carter. They're getting a different echelon of edge rusher that's coming in here. That's really going to raise the ceiling. This is a Micah Parsons level prospect, right? Like this is someone that's going to come in and have an immediate impact, and he certainly is right now. I mean, the question is now, like you said, what can he do with pads, and how much more,
Yeah.
electric can that look?
Um, Couple other notes. We did our Camp Battles podcast on Tuesday, and we led off with really the only true, starting job battle because even the second defensive tackle spot's going to get rotated a ton. Cordale Flott and Deonte Banks. Cordale Flott got the first crack on day one with the first team, which I do feel like they're truly making this a competition. Banks got it on the second day. They rotated pretty evenly throughout practices. I don't really have like much takeaways on either one of their performances. I think Banks has outperformed Flott. They've both given up touchdowns to Malik Neighbors, but I think Banks has made some plays. Flott gave up a touchdown to Daniel Bellinger. Once the field opens up a little bit more, you can judge them a little more. But I do think it's pretty significant that this is not. I don't think this is as simple as just trying to motivate Deonte Banks. I think this is a legitimate starting position battle.
Yeah, no, I'm starting to believe that myself. Like at first, like that's what you think the motive is, right? But then you go and you watch it, and look, I'm with you. Like I haven't monitored it as closely as I probably should have, just because you're like you said, we're watching Jaxson Dart so closely, we're watching Abdul Carter so closely. But no, it is a legitimate competition, and I think you see yesterday, you see that the hustle is there from Deonte Banks. He has he does really good in coverage against Malik Neighbors, and then today, makes some fine plays. I think if it's neck and neck at the end of camp, I'm thinking they give it the edge to Deonte Banks just because he's a first round pick.
Right.
And they want to see what he could do with the number 2 corner role. But it is certainly close. Like it's definitely
And
closer for comfort.
eventually, but we're gonna get to a point where they're not splitting the reps evenly, and we'll kind of figure it out how they feel at that point. Um, but and I will say this, when we talk about the position battle, my thing is not Banks beat out Flop. My thing is Banks be good. Like
Mhm.
be an advantage to this team as the second corner. And something I've noticed with this defense is that being the second corner does not mean covering the second wide receiver all the time. Again, they're getting plenty of matchups with the wide receiver ones with a Debo on the second guy. But Banks has to win that job. Um, Last note, new obsession, Nic Jones. Seventh round corner from the Chiefs in 2023. The reason why I wasn't super familiar with Nic Jones is he when he signed with the Giants like 8 days before my wedding. He was on the Chiefs last year. And guess what the Chiefs did? They went to the Super Bowl. He was on the Chiefs practice squad. So when, the season ends for a team, their practice squad is now free agents. They're free to sign anywhere. They usually a lot of them sign futures contracts with the team they're on. Nic Jones, as well as Montreal Washington, signed with the Giants instead. Um, you know, he has been like kind of good these first couple of days, and he's playing with the second team. Came into camp like they don't really have a second team nickel corner on this team. Well, Nic Jones is filling that role. He was the guy who had the pick six on Jaxson Dart on his first throw. On day 2, he had a nice pass breakup on Amir Smith-Marset. He had a sack on Jaxson Dart, free rush play, but still notable. In one-on-ones, he held his own pretty good. Like he went for me from a guy who I had no prior information on besides that he played with the Chiefs to now he might be a guy fighting for a legitimate roster spot.
No, he certainly will, and this is one of those things that you have to look at. Like, okay, is it going to be a Trey Hawkins situation from a couple of years ago, or is it going to be a legitimate the summer of Nic Jones translates into him being the backup nickel. You have to consider it, man. And look, a lot of like you said, he comes from the Chiefs. Chiefs obviously have a great defense, and probably is not going to squeeze anybody out of a job there. Um, you look at Nic Jones signing with the Giants, probably a betting on himself situation, and you know he's more than taken advantage of that situation right now in these first 2 days. He'll be someone to follow for sure.
Yeah, and it's not even like, oh, let Nic Jones, he needs to be the starting nickel corner, which even if he was playing
Mhm.
better than what he was, and no one's saying he'd do that over Drew Phillips, but like I think he's got a legit chance to make the roster.
Drew Phillips has had a great camp, by the way. I feel like we gotta shout him out. He had a good day today.
Yeah, yeah, he had the interception
Mm.
on Russell Wilson on that 2-point conversion.
And right before the play before, you look at go for the Wan'Dale Robinson circus catch, but stay and look at it for the Drew Phillips coverage. He covered him just about as well as anybody could have, but Wan'Dale just made a free catch.
Yeah, and again, Drew Phillips got want to see him get his head around on some of those things. But yeah, Phillips has looked good. I was talking with Rich of Big Blue Huddle, and we both had the same thing. Like Drew Phillips has looked pretty good, and then he gave up that touchdown, but then had an interception to play later. Um, he's someone who needs to have a big year too. Anything else before we get into the Art Stapleton interview?
The only thing that I would say, that I guess I can add is Camp Scadaboo is always open. He is like 7-Eleven, man.
I know he probably has like the most just flat out catches if you include 707 and the team drills. But again, I can't wait to watch him in preseason just run over some fucking poor third string
I haven't
safety.
I haven't watched it in a while, but I think potentially even on the Dart interception from the first day, I think he might have been open on the right side of the field. I haven't watched it again since yesterday, but yeah, no, he's definitely always open. And like you said, that's not even the strength of his game. Like let's see what he could do to a poor third string free safety or something like that.
One thing we got to talk about is with the preseason good games coming up means that there's preseason games and regular season games coming up. And that's what I want to talk to you about. SeatGeek. Today's episode is sponsored by SeatGeek, and I want to give them a huge, huge shout out. With over 28 million downloads. That's a lot. I bet you that number's updated since I got this copy. SeatGeek
Definitely.
is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. I was thinking about getting some preseason tickets for the mystery box, which the wheel has been hectic, but good. Might have to take a day off from the wheel because I think we've run out of stickers.
Send someone to Buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's what we'll do. Is like, who is in the Buffalo area? We will buy you preseason tickets for the. That's better because the people who are around here going to a preseason game, they don't value it as much. Maybe we'll do that for somebody in Buffalo. So the NFL schedule is out. Preseason training camp's going. Go get your tickets on SeatGeek. I've used them for essentially every ticket ever that I've had, except for when they're not available on SeatGeek, which I think has only happened to me once. In my entire life of buying tickets. So SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And I came through for you guys. You can use code BOBBY2025 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code BOBBY2025. And you get 0% off if you use Ryan Novozinsky 2025. But we got to fix that. You'll be glad you did. Make sure to click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. You'll be glad you did. And here's Art Stapleton. All right. First interview of the bus series. The van series is no longer. Now we do it on the bus. Art Stapleton. Thanks for jumping on the bus, my brother.
What's up, Bobby? Novo.
What's up, Art?
What's going on?
Glad to have you on the bus here.
Thank
I'm
you.
hoping you guys don't like tag team, like bully me, beat reporter versus, outsider. But want to start with this. It's the first Daniel, and the camera's shaking with the wind. This is the first Daniel Jones camp in a while.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on Russ and his command over the offense? It's only 2 days, but I feel like he looks pretty good out there.
Yeah, I think the timing of everything is a little bit surprising, honestly, that, he had the timing that he had with Neighbors yesterday. Just this is really the first time they throw it, other than in Russ's backyard in San Diego, which you all got to watch on Instagram with those great videos. It was the first time he was throwing with neighbors at all. So I think, for the most part, his command and, I wrote a column today off of, his 700-word answer to the question I asked him about confidence and, do you guard against it being false with bravado and making sure that people understand? And, I think they believe him right now. I think every one of his teammates believes in what he's saying, and he's very convincing. And I think that's part of the reason he's very polished. And I think last year Daniel Jones was just he was more in his own head, I think, than in the locker room fighting for the team, because he went through an off season that, you know, they basically said, we want to get rid of you as quickly as possible, but we couldn't pull it off. So I think Russ is exactly what they needed as the starter. Now, is he going to win games? I don't know that. I think we're well beyond, the prediction stage right now.
Until about 18 minutes from now.
Yeah, well, we can make predictions. I mean, they're all predictions sure to go wrong, because I don't think I've hit one right since who knows whenever.
Well, to be fair, the Giants have been on the opposite end of expectations, but with Russ, it's not through first 2 days. It's not like this anything to overanalyze or anything. It's like, all right, but he has command of what they are out there running, right? We haven't seen the full playbook or anything. He's only thrown the ball 30 times, but it's like, all right, when he sees it, it's there. It gets out on time. And when it's not, he gets to his checkdowns, which has kind of been Russ's MO, but like he's very comfortable doing that. He's a quarterback where, something frustrating I think sometimes about a Dable camp is like I would like him to call sacks when they were starting to get a little heavy.
Yeah.
With Russ, there's only been one play where I'm like, oh, one was a bootleg, but one play where I'm like, oh, that would have been a sack. Like he has a good job of, even in practice, knowing he's not going to get hit by feeling that pressure, scrambling or checking the ball down, so you don't have to go through this, oh, this would be a sack, this one might be a sack. Like he just kind of has a good feeling for that, even though he does take a lot of sacks when the games start.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think, his pocket awareness, the way he maneuvers the pocket, I think is important. I think if Dable called sacks, Abdul Carter and Brian Burns might be approaching Strahan territory in 2 days of practice, because they've been all over the place. But I think for the most part, you know, I got to admit, guys, I thought he was washed. I did not expect Russell Wilson to come here and look as good as he did in the spring. And I know, look, we're all, and I'm victim of it. You blow guys up in camp, especially. We all know, Darren Waller's Hall of Fame camp from 2 years
Darren
ago.
Waller was good. He just got
He was
hurt.
awesome, right? But I think what they ended up doing at quarterback kind of changed the room completely. And as I had somebody in the league tell me that I've written several times, they went from milk toast to Fireball whiskey. And that's what they did. They brought in personalities and guys who really don't give a crap. I wanted to mention this because I saw it today. I don't know if you saw it from where you guys were, or you saw it. They were, when they break up, and Russ and Dart went with the first team, and Winston and DeVito went with the backups essentially. And there was a point where they were doing it on air. They were really doing a walkthrough, or an install, whatever it was in that period. And Winston just flipped the ball out to little Jordan Humphrey, and little Jordan Humphrey dropped it, like bobbled it and dropped it. And Winston just stared at him. And come on, man, what's up? Like catch it. And it's against air, and it's totally not the Jameis Winston that is the caricature of Jameis Winston. And I looked at that and I was like, you know what? They would have never had that in years past, regardless of whatever quarterback was in that room. And I think it kind of, it raises all boats. I mean, little Jordan Humphrey's probably not going to be on this team, and Jameis, who knows how many consequential snaps he's going to take. But I just thought that one moment that I noticed today was, was indicative of how they've changed this quarterback room for the better.
It's completely different. I think it's completely different, obviously, from last year, for obvious reasons. Like you said, milk toast to Fireball whiskey is a great way to put it. How, we know leadership-wise, we know what Russ can bring. People rave about him across the league. A lot of people do at least. How consistent, or sorry, how sustainable do you think he could be on-field wise?
That's the
The Met.
$10.5 million question, right? Or maybe the $21 million question if somehow he can hit all these unrealistic, not likely to be earned incentives. You know, look, I know there's a point where it's too much piling on Daniel Jones and people get sick of it, especially the people who have defended him for years. And I don't feel like the three of us have been overly critical on Daniel. You're just reporting what you see in front of you. But there really is, I don't think it's delusional to find 4 or 5 plays in every game that they lost last year, or at least in the early part of the season, where if Daniel Jones makes a throw, makes the right read, doesn't make a throw that he shouldn't have made, that maybe the game turns out differently. And I know it's a game of what ifs, but I think maybe Russell Wilson is more apt to make those plays. Bobby mentioned the check downs, even just in camp, taking the check down, not forcing the ball, not throwing the ball into the ground. And I think, that makes a difference. He's a 10-time Pro Bowler. Russell Wilson is not what he was when he won a Super Bowl right over there. But I think he has more of a presence at quarterback, and you're not looking at him saying, well, if he could run the ball, then our offense could be really good. And I think we all kind of fell into that trap, or I'll speak for myself. I fell into that trap. Off of 22, I looked at Daniel Jones and said, he is a weapon with his legs. And that is probably the worst way to build an offense from the quarterback position if you can't be a consistent passer. And I think Russell Wilson can. And, so on the field, I think that makes a difference. Now, is he better than, Jaxson Dart 3 months from now? We're going to wait and see. We're going to find out. And, they're going to play that game of going back and forth of who's going to be the starter and who's not. But the bottom line is I do think it's an upgrade. How significant? We'll just have to wait and see.
I do want to talk some Dart, but before that, you mentioned yesterday that Evan Neal was working a little bit with the first team at guard. He did it today. Do you think that that's actually a real deal chance for him from the Giants' point of view, or is it simply like, hey, we want to give him some opportunities, and Greg Van Rote is not somebody who needs a ton of training camp reps? I mean, hell, he wasn't even here at this time last year.
I think that's a great point, Bobby. Honestly, why burn out Van Roten and his legs in 90-degree heat here in North Jersey? Get the reps for Neal and Kubas and Stinney and spot Van Roten in there. But I could also see a crazy scenario where all of a sudden, if JMS is not playing well or he gets hurt again, that they're going to need Van Roten at center.
Right.
And so who do you want to be that next guy up? So I think they got to try to see what they can do as far as, give Neal a chance, see what he's got and go from there. But to answer your question, I don't expect Evan Neal to be the starting right guard, September 7th in Landover, but I'm intrigued to see how it plays out. It doesn't mean anything until the pads go on and they get in preseason games. But if they're going to show Evan Neal a lot and he's healthy enough to be on the field, I think it's going to be very interesting for all of us to kind of watch him in game scenarios and to see if there's more positives and negatives and that he can actually be useful as a reserve guard on this team. I'm actually more, I don't want to jump and mention this, but I mentioned it when I taped my podcast a little while ago. The reality is Marcus Bowe intrigues me even more so than what they're doing with Evan Neal. And it didn't happen much yesterday, but Bowe being at right tackle and left tackle, and when they split the two teams and they went to the first team on one side of the field, Marcus Bowe went with the first team. And so that to me shows that the longer Andrew Thomas is out, now I don't think that means anything about Andrew Thomas and that he's going to be out for a long period of time or that they're worried. I think they look at it and they say, you know what? if James Hudson has to be anything more than a swing tackle on this team, and Andrew Thomas can't play, we are dead. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Marcus Bowe get some reps here over the next week and a half with the first team at left tackle. That's just something that I saw today, and it wouldn't surprise me if it happens.
Which I think you need to see him against those top players because
Yep.
there's things that Bo is really good at, but it's just can he hold up against strength-wise against the top players in the NFL?
He didn't against Abdul Carter today.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that's rough.
Which at the same time, it's like Abdul Carter is so good that like I can't give you a pass, but I kind of give you a pass. But the other position battle that that I think is more real than maybe I gave it credit through the spring when you guys were talking about it. Banks and Flott. I was pretty intrigued the fact that Flott went out first on day one, and that this is maybe more of just a flat out position battle. Whoever does better in camp and preseason gets to the shop.
I think you're right. And I think it's probably a front office coaching staff thing here. Now, look, Cordale Flott turning into a player is good for Joe Shane and the scouting department. They picked him in the 3rd round. He was the youngest player in the draft that year. But, Tay Banks is a first-round pick. So the front office, I think if they had their druthers, they would rather have Tay Banks as the starter and Flott as a quality backup. But in this case, if they have to start Flott because he's the better player and Banks is now your 4th corner, your guy who's coming off the bench, you don't like it, but you got to play the better player. And I do give them credit. I agree with you, Bobby. I saw it at the end of the spring and I was like, yeah, let's see when we get into training camp, what they're doing. Are there some mind games at play for Tay Banks to see where his head is at? Are they trying to motivate him? Because that was all the talk last year that he wasn't motivated enough and he had problems with Jerome Henderson and Jerome Henderson couldn't get everything out of him. And I had a lot of respect for Jerome Henderson. So this is not going to be me blasting Jerome and saying he was the problem. I think the problem was Tay Banks in his 2nd year. Is his head on straight now? Is he, more confident? It remains to be seen, but I agree with you. I think Banks is the more physically gifted player, but Flott, there's something about him. I don't know if it's technique-wise because it's clearly I'm not a corner, but there's something about Flott. When he's gotten some opportunities, his biggest issue has been staying healthy because I remember the end of 2022, so it was his rookie year, that game in Philly when they got blown out by no, they didn't get blown out by the Eagles. They got blown out by the Eagles in the playoffs, but they played all the starters and Jaxson Dart. Davis Webb threw the touchdown to Kenny Golladay, the only touchdown that Kenny Golladay caught in a Giants uniform. Sorry, Giants fans.
Oh, that's one of my top 5 memories of the last 10 years.
But Flott, if I'm not mistaken, Flott covered A.J. Brown that game and did a really good job on him. And then when they were in Minnesota, if you remember the playoff game, that last series when McKinney made the tackle on Hawkinson, the play before it, somebody got hurt and had to come out. I can't remember if it was a Dory or who would have been the other.
It was Darnay.
It was Darnay. Okay.
He played 3 snaps in that game, like you said.
And Darnay came off the field and Flott went on the field and actually covered Justin Jefferson on that play before the Hawkinson play and did a good job. So it was almost like, okay, you've teased us enough. Let's give you a little bit more leash. And I think maybe this does extend into into preseason and see where they're going to go. I mean, we haven't talked to Tay much, if at all, really since the beginning of last season. He did the one presser in the field house, and then that was really it. Flott came out yesterday, but didn't do a big group. I'm interested to see how they, and Drew Phillips today talked about it and said, look, Flott and Banks are very tight off the field. So this competition is very interesting because it's not a I hate you, you're stealing my spot kind of thing. So I'm interested to see how it goes on. But I do agree with you. If there's any competition that matters right now in training camp, it's that one. That one's going to matter, what they're going to do and what they're going to decide on in week 1.
All right, we're back. We waited long enough. What are your thoughts on Jaxson Dart through 2 days?
It's kind of what I expected. You know, I think as a rookie, I mean, I think he's made some plays. I think, you know, you look yesterday, first throw in team drills, and he's picked off by Nic Jones, who, you know, I think has shown that, you know, he might have more of a chance to make this roster as a backup nickel. You know, get throws a pick six on the first throw, then
I'm a Nic Jones guy.
you know,
True
and then today, his first throw in team periods, he you know, stands in the pocket under pressure and hits Jalen Hyatt. Nice adjustment at the front pylon on the right side for a touchdown. So, you know, I think it's important that what they see from Jaxson Dart behind the scenes is what they need to see. And out for us, what they tell us is another story. I mean, you Dable was adamant about, you know, Russell Wilson as the starter because I think he's pretty confident in the fact that they have a plan for Dart and they are going to get Dart ready, but they don't want to put the pressure on saying that Dart is all of a sudden going to be a starter. But I think it's pretty clear that, you know, he's got some things to work through. And I think I mentioned the timing about Russell Wilson. I think it's the speed. He seems like he's a half step, a half click behind everything so far in training camp. And I think, you know, that'll come, you hope, with, you know, the more reps he gets in live contact, live action, and you go from there. But I love his attitude. I loved his attitude in the spring. I wasn't a big Jaxson Dart fan in the draft. I didn't think that he would be at the top of the Giants list. But you know, I was wrong with that. They obviously liked it. And then the thing that sold me on Dart was his QB camp with Gruden. And watching that the morning of the first day of the draft,
So good.
I thought that was excellent. I liked Dart, and it was at that moment I thought to myself, "That's a Dable guy." I know there were reports, you know, it's okay, Connor Hughes. We're going to give you credit for saying that you know Dable liked Jaxson Dart, but you know, it was that moment that I said, you know what, that's a Dable guy. Like I can see Dable digging in with Dart and his attitude to that
Yeah, so
aspect.
it's a rookie first round quarterback. Me and Novo are going to talk about him every single day on our live streams. We're going to dedicate some time to him. And listen, I wasn't someone who was a fan of his either, but as a Giants fan who now has a rookie first round quarterback, this year is about getting ready, right? We've said it all off season, but we kind of I think sometimes it's like, oh, about getting ready, but also he's going to look awesome in that time getting ready. No, the reason he needs to get ready is because of what we're seeing on the field. He needs to grow and learn through those. Will he? We'll see when he gets, some consistent playing time in the NFL. So, we're going to talk about it every day, but in reality, I'm just what I'm hoping to see out of Dart by the end of this camp, it's not, oh, let's go 9 for 11 or 9 for 12 in a practice. I would like to see that. But it's more so start trusting what you're seeing a little better. Because like you said, it's just essentially everything is late unless it's like kind of that obvious, like, the Jalen Hyatt touchdown.
Right,
It was
off that I just
it was a free rusher blitz. All right, I got to find my one-on-one matchup, throw it. When it is like a more basic zone coverage, that's what I want to see out of Dart.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a good point. But I think it's also like Darius Slayton said this in the post practice presser, that you know, look, sometimes we watch practice and we're like, they're not moving the ball. I mean, you guys know this. They've only done red zone and like fringe red zone so far.
Yeah.
They haven't even opened up the field to full 7-on-7, full team, that kind of thing. So, you know, at this point, you know, let's see what Jaxson Dart does in a full field before we even start saying, okay, he's this, he's that, because we all know, you know, the red zone is difficult enough for a veteran like Wilson. Now you're putting Dart in a red zone situation where everything is compact. Now he's got to make those quick decisions, like you said, Bobby, and it's just a hair off. I mean, assuming that's what we're seeing, you know what I mean?
Right.
We're seeing one thing. We don't know, you know, are the receivers that he's playing with, you know, he's not getting as many first team reps. So he's not throwing with Wandale or Neighbors or Slayton. He's with the backup guys, and, you know, you just don't know. So, you know, like you said, it's a day-to-day thing. You have to talk about Jaxson Dart. You have to kind of chart his progress and see where he's doing. But if Jaxson Dart becomes a factor in the 2025 Giants, then something either really, really good and unexpected happened or something really bad happened and he is just a part of this team now because they just fell flat on their face. He's about 2026, 2027. I'm not saying you wait until then to put him on the field, but I'm saying that when we start judging him this time next year in training camp, we expect to be talking about Jaxson Dart the way we're talking about Russell Wilson.
Who do you think calls plays for him? For either
Jackson?
for both for who do you think is calling plays? That's what
It's gonna be
I
Kafka. I think it's gonna be Mike Kafka, and I think Dable last year thought it was the silver bullet. Let me call plays. It's what I do. I'm good at it. It's why I have the job. And there were plays that he called that we know if the quarterback made the right read or threw the ball or the protection held up, they probably would have hit big. But I also think that Dable was always going for the home run. And I think of the play in Cleveland that Malik Neighbors had to turn into cornerback to save the interception. The throwback to Theo Johnson that they ran twice.
Yeah.
It's a great play on paper, and it should have worked, but you have to know it's not going to work with the personnel that you're asking. You can't ask this guy to be the backside blocker against Myles Garrett. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen. So I think Kafka will be the play caller. I think Dable will be in his ear, and I think the working relationship between those two needs to be top notch. And if it's not, then they're doing their team a disservice. So I think Dable has to take a step back a little bit, be a little bit more of a head coach. I think that's how he keeps this job moving forward because I think ownership is looking at Dable as the head coach. I think when they hired Joe Judge, John Mara said it, we want more of a CEO. Then they went to a guy who got the job because he was a great offensive mind. He doesn't lose that. Dable doesn't lose being a great offensive mind. There's no reason why he shouldn't be in offensive meetings and putting together the game plan and talking to the quarterbacks. But honestly, if you're talking about the future of the Giants, Dable's biggest job this year is probably Jaxson Dart. So you want him spending as much time as he can with Jaxson Dart as well. So answer your question, I think it's Kafka. I think Kafka calls the plays. And then if things are a disaster or they're not working behind the scenes, Dable can take them back. But it's very hard for the head coach to give up play calling without kind of taking an ego hit in the locker room and then give it to one of the assistants. So I think it remains to be seen. I don't think Dable did a terrible job calling plays because I think schematically they did scheme things open. I just think they just didn't account for the personnel that they were asking to run the plays that he was calling, and sometimes that's more important than what the plays are that you're calling and getting guys open.
Final question. What is your record prediction on the 2025 New York Giants?
When the schedule came out, I said 7, and that was probably a little bit on the high end, but I'm counting on this past draft class to be an elite draft class, to almost be a class like Detroit had, to be a class that the Saints had back in the day where, when I say back in the day, it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago when the Saints had that big time
Yeah.
when it was Lattimore and, guys all up and down. And I think that draft class, if they can take a step up and Drew Phillips can become, a very good player and Tyler Nubin can be what they thought he would be coming out of college and Theo Johnson becomes, a top 10 tight end that people are talking about next year. Hey, Theo Johnson's a playmaker. You got to keep your eye on this kid. And then, of course, Malik Neighbors staying healthy. Um, look, yeah, the schedule's hard, but so what? I mean, every year the schedules are hard, and then teams that are supposed to be really good, fall on their face. I mean, coming out of 2022, whoever had the Giants on the schedule were probably like, you know what? They were pretty good last year. They won a playoff game. We got to watch out for them. And then 2023, they're basically a win on people's schedules. So I'm going to stick with my 7 wins. I think, I think they split the first 2 weeks. If everybody's healthy and they've got this team out there, I think Washington is vulnerable because I don't think it's easy to do what they did last year and then come back a year later and be hungrier. That doesn't account for Jaden Daniels still being a great player and being a force multiplier, I guess, for them. But I think the first 2 weeks, if they get one, Then it's about, all right, get one of the next two against Kansas City or the Chargers. And then if you're sitting at 2-2, now you go into October saying, we've got our feet under us. Let's see if this defense is really doing what they can do. And then you go back to the quarterback and say, excuse me, if Russell Wilson is doing what he needs to do, then maybe this team is better than people think. I don't think they're going to win 3 games. I mean, they have too much talent defensively. Like I said, we've all seen doomsday scenarios here. So, yeah, could it be a doomsday scenario? It's possible. But this defense is too talented, and you've got neighbors. And I think the offensive line, if they can be, you know, in the top half of the league at 16, at 15, where they're ranked, I think they'll be fine offensively. And they've got to score points. And the fastest way to score points is to do what Russell Wilson does best, and that's go over the top. None of these 15 play drives where you're hitting Wandell for, a depth of target is 6 yards. You can't move the ball. You can't win in today's NFL by playing that way. So I think that, I think that they'll be better, but I still don't think they're, in a playoff situation where, you're competing in December to be in the playoffs. Could they? Stranger things have happened in this league.
All right, Art Stapleton, thank you for becoming the first bus interview. Now you got to get to sign it. We'll talk soon. Appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks, Bobby. Thanks, Novo. We'll catch you soon.
All right, thanks again for Art Stapleton for coming on. Make sure to go give him a shout out for joining Giants Nation again. First official interview on the bus. The Sussex County Miners. The live show is coming up August 2nd. I mean, when people are listening to this, eight days away, we are going to be doing a live recording of Giants Nation at Skyland Stadium for the Sussex County Miners. If you don't know what that is, they are my favorite baseball team in the world. They are hosting us. We're giving away possible suite tickets. Go to scminers.com. August 2nd, Saturday. It's their Wands and Wizards night too. So if you want to dress up like that, go for it. I probably won't. Maybe I'll get
Come on.
a big wand, and I just smack the crap out of people with it. So if you want to do that, scminers.com. And I'm gonna repost a tweet tomorrow for people to do this. We are giving away 15 tickets to the suite that we have for it. So if you reply with your screenshot of the tickets that you got and get in there, we will do a raffle for that, and then you may be able to have your tickets upgraded to a suite. But regardless, we're gonna have the show at 5:00. The game's at 6:30. So we're gonna do the show, or the game's at 7. We're gonna do the show, and then gonna hang out talk with people. Yeah, I'm gonna spend some time in the suite, but I think for the people who don't win those, we're going to try and figure out hey, in the 5th inning, we're all going to meet up and hang out here and talk some Giants and watch some baseball. So August 2nd, come out. They're the #1. They're the first ever sponsor of Giants Nation. So check it out. You told me you had a minor story.
That's an off-air story.
Oh, it's an off-air story. Okay. All right. Well, we can't say it now. Again, thank you, Art, for jumping on. We will be back on Monday with a player profile episode. Tuesday, again, myself and Novo, plus another bus interview. If you're out at training camp, come say hello. And I think we're going to have to start yelling Nic Jones' name at him. We need him to feel the support of Giants Nation. We will see you guys then. Enjoy your weekend. Until then, let's go Big Blue.